You're live.
Oh. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Council and Committee for the Town of Petawawa to order for November 12th, 2024. Welcome members of council, staff, and our special guests in the audience, and of course, all of you watching. We'll start the meeting off by the reading of the land acknowledgement, and this evening it'll be Councillor Kearney.
Thank you for your service. As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Calls to action number 31. We call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to provide sufficient and stable funding to implement and evaluate community sanctions that will provide realistic alternatives to imprisonment for Aboriginal offenders and respond to the underlying causes of offending. Recent progress. The Indigenous Justice Program supports more than 211 Indigenous-led community-based justice programs in partnership with the provinces and territories. Funded programs provide alternatives to the mainstream justice system.
Thank you, Councillor Carmody. I'll ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest on any proceedings matters. There are no presentations, so we'll get right into it with our Community Services Monthly Report for October 2024. Colin Coyle, tell us what's been going on in the community service.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor and Council. We continue to have a busy time over at the Community Services Department. You can see Joe Mick went through a series of training exercises through Enterprise and the County. This is just an additional way for us to promote the upcoming programs, activities, basically utilizing and learning about social media. So he's utilizing that now to get more information out to the public about what we're doing. We had promotion within the department. Haley Runke, who's been our administrative assistant, is now the Recreation and Culture Coordinator. As well. From the next two pages, you can see we've had as well in our programs. So September is coming around, which is back to school. Parents are looking to be active, so we've had growth in all of our programs from numbers and extensively. You can see from our grant for active aging, we've been able to do extensive more programming over not just at Silver Threads, but outside in the community as well. We're seeing even more, so we're currently doing quite a few surveys to get back more feedback on what we want to see in the community for that age population as well. Over the course of last month for events, we had the Harvest Dinner over at Silver Threads, which was well attended, and we saw significant growth in both Pines and Gourds as well as Barney Trail. The Barnes Trail itself doubled from last year. We have interest in seeing it grow for next year and hoping to double those numbers. Our goal is to get the participation up to about 500 people, which would become more of a tourism option for us as well. And last but not least, just inviting everyone from council and anyone watching to our next month's events. We're going to be this coming weekend. We're celebrating the Petawawa Civic Center's 50th anniversary, so it's a big milestone for that building and all that is offered to the community over the past 50 years. And as well, inviting people out to the coffee house. So this is an opportunity to listen to live music, coffee and dessert is included. And we'll continue those over the course of the next few months as well. And I will just ask if there's any questions from the council.
Thanks, Colin. Questions of the report? Councilor Pickens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colin, I just wanted to say congratulations to Haley for on her promotion and glad to hear your announcement of your new employee, Noel Green. So I'm really glad to see your department grow because you are certainly very busy. So thank you for all you do.
Mayor Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the Colin. Colin, just under your tourism, you talked about the Toronto Snowmobile, ATV, and motorcycle show, and I'm just wondering how that went. And I know you went with the community partner.
Yes, so that was something I addressed last month, but just as a crossover into this past month, it was a partnership with Jamie Moody from the Quality Inn, with the GM at the hotel. So it was a great opportunity to work with one of our accommodators, and this show was busy. The amount of people that were either already knew of our area were very keen to find out about the partnerships that we had with the hotels, the comfort station that was being built, the trail development that was going on. We had some really good conversations that I think are going to have some actual turnaround. See tourism grow for some of it in the ATV and in our area.
Any questions or comments? Just a quick question about basketball and pickleball. I see good numbers in those two. Where are those taking place?
So yeah, we're seeing growth. Those are programs we had running previously and we brought back. They're both running over at Valor, so we have use of the school on certain nights. So we're seeing growth in that and interest in that. So those are ones we're hoping, especially pickleball, to see continue on going into the spring when we can get all participants back outside.
Right on. And today at the county, the Petawawa proposed map tax was mentioned. So just a question about when we can expect to see that come to the council.
The map should be coming up forward soon. We're just waiting for some final agreements with the OBTA for the MOU. It's just being reviewed by the county, and we should, once I have that, I will be preparing to bring something forward to council.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for all your work, you and your staff, on the upcoming 50th anniversary celebration this Saturday, November 16th. Starting at 6 o'clock, we're gonna have an old timers game with the Dinos and the Silver Kings. And then at 7, we'll move upstairs for some cash bar and some snacks, and then a little ceremony at 8, and then a 1970s disco dance from 8 until 1. I think we've invited most of the bartending, volunteer fundraising bartenders, both past and present. Anybody who's worked there, coached there, played sports there, anybody who has had an interest in the Civic Center over the years. So we're hoping for a big turnout and a great celebration. So thanks for all your work on that. And I see that we've got a bit of the Christmas trail of lights starting to go up again.
Yes, for the past 2 weeks, the frames have been built, the lights are prepped. Staff are working away at getting all that put together, so it will be good to go as part of the Marion Break Festival once again this year, and seeing extended. So I don't want to give away too much, but it will be longer than last year.
So the first evening the lights will be on will be December 7th, in conjunction with the Santa Parade, or will the lights be on before that?
We are planning to start off with the Christmas craft show, which is December 1st. So with that event, that also kick off the lights going on with trees and a few other things holding off until the parade happens.
Right on. A lot happening. It's going to be an exciting winter over at Community Services. Okay, if there are no further questions, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the Community Services monthly report for October be accepted as information. Hopefully one more thing.
Yeah, just your worship, through you to all of council, that should actually read recreation and cultural programming. Not community services. That department does not exist anymore.
Okay. That's the Recreation and Tourism Department.
Sure. Recreation and culture and cultural programming department report.
Okay, let's try that again. So it's moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the recreation and cultural programming monthly report for October be accepted as information. Very good. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's good. Thanks, Nolan. Next up, we have the monthly report for October 2024 for the fire department. Acting Chief Crew.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the monthly report for October, we had a total of 15 incidents with 3 carbon monoxide alarms, 2 were faulty, 1 was due to a wood stove. For fire alarms, we had 4, 3 were false alarms, and another 1 was due to a wood stove. For this parking street light on Limestone, October 11th, but nothing was found. There's smoke showing in the vicinity of 31 Sharon Street. And there was nothing found there. Got a smell of gas on Willard, October 19th. And it was possibly due to the local gas station with the winds blowing towards that area. We had a motor vehicle collision on October 23rd. The crews were stood down prior to leaving the station, and then we responded out to Barry Canyon Road for a logging truck that overturned. We had 4 unauthorized burns. One was a complaint with residents bringing a 45-gallon drum, and then during Halloween we had a display that they were using with fire. We asked them to put out. We had 12 inspections throughout the month, 4 were follow-ups from previous month. For our training, our chief fire inspector attended the fire educators public education conference in Ajax, which was very well accepted, especially with the fire departments pushing the online media. So we got some ideas from other departments that Simon was able to bring back. Fire prevention, the crews got ready for the schools. Fire prevention week was October 6th to the 12th this year. And we were able to get through a number of students and classes in class and schools. We ended up talking with 569 students and 54 adults. We actually had to extend it to through 2 weeks because of the how busy the fire prevention team were and our suppression team. Residential smoke alarms and CO alarms, we had 27 homes inspected, brings us up to 258. For the recreational burn permits, we started with 940, ended up with 922. For training, the crews conducted rapid intervention training, where they demonstrated communications, working with their equipment, aiming up in low visibility, and command and control. Specialized training, we had our officers come in on the 28th, look at the new program of effective command that we're looking to purchase. And one of the captains attended the effective command instructors course in Pembroke on the 15th to the 18th. Maintenance, we just had minor repairs on our apparatus for building. We repaired minor repairs there as well. And we had some bunker gear that were cleaned and repaired and tested. For the chief's comments, I attended a labor management meeting on the 1st. The 6th to the 12th again was the fire prevention week. The theme for this year was smoke alarms make them work for you. The 30th, our request for quotations went out to supply 12 intrinsically safe portable radios that we've been looking through the year for, and that closes tomorrow. On the 31st, we submitted our application for the grant for $50,000 for the community emergency preparedness grant. And we were looking at purchasing some items such as sandbags, sandbagging machines, road closure trailer, high volume pumps. October 30th, attended senior management meeting, and the 31st, the fire department hosted the street accessibility community event at Station 1 and 2. And that's my report for October.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions of the report? Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Craig. Craig, I'm looking under unauthorized burning and the Russell Street pumps and boats. Does that also involve the police? Because it was probably a potential vandal or like somebody lit it. Is that what I understand? Or
That was, a resident that was using the posts, and lit them for the decoration of their front yard. One of our members passed through and, we had the team go up and ask them to put it out.
Okay, so that was a prevention piece. Thank you. Thanks to the team for that.
Any other questions of the report? Just a question about Barron Canyon Road and the car accident. That's the border between us and Laurentian Valley, so when there's an accident on that road and the call goes out, does it go to both us and Laurentian Valley, or just one of us or everybody?
So we have an agreement with Laurentian Hills. We go in for education and vehicle fires. And then the ministry takes care of push cars, but it's just an agreement between us, but they don't respond unless we require them.
Or I said Valley, and let's say Hill. There's too many Laurentians there. Okay, thanks. Any further questions? Then I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saffron, seconded by Councillor Coutu. That the fire department monthly report for October be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Craig. Okay, next we have financial services. FIN-18-2024 reserves and reserve funds. Christine, our Director of Financial Services, not Director of Finance.
These reports that have been brought forward to council are a little bit different than what's been presented in previous years. It's been my attempt in this report as well as the following report to try and summarize and demonstrate to council what our reserves are and what's actually in the bank and what we're saving for. I think in the past that all council has seen is just money in, money out, but never what's in the bank and what we're saving for, so to speak. It's taken me a while to try and pull all of this information together. The bylaws that I found that are still in place today go back to the oldest one that actually still is in place is from 1970. So there's going to be some work from the finance department to do some updating and bring forward to council some updated policies and bylaws relating to reserves and reserve funds. But in order to do that, I wanted to present to council kind of where we are now, and then go forward from there. And where we are now is 2023. We do need council's approval. Again, that's part of an update for a future policy is that the treasurer can take care of these bookkeeping entries on behalf of council based on an approved budget. But because we don't have that, I need to bring you guys some reports to dot the i's and cross the t's from an approval process. So that's the narrative. Moving into the actual numbers. The report for reserve and reserve funds, the first section of the report, I've broken down into 3 sections. So what are we transferring into reserves? And then the second section, is what are we transferring out of reserves? So the first one is easy. It's easy to put stuff in because we haven't spent it yet. What we're taking out of reserves, we didn't necessarily spend everything that we had budgeted for. So for example, if we had budgeted $50,000, but we only spent $30,000, that second section is saying, please approve us only taking out for $30,000. No point in us taking out the full 50. And then the third section is adding into reserves that we taxed for during the 2023 year. So there were projects that we incorporated into our tax levy. For example, recreation master plans, specific capital projects that we taxed for, but either did not complete or did not start. That third section is a request to put those into reserve. Otherwise, the end result would be if we were to not transfer them into reserve, that quote unquote saving in the year would flow to our surplus deficit. And then we would be at the beginning again for the next budget year and taxing for it again. So it's a numbers game. It's a lot of tracking, a lot of spreadsheets. So I tried to break it down into those three distinct buckets. So the first section, council has already approved through the budget cycle. It's really the second section. So that the title of that section is transfers from/out of reserve and reserve funds. So the total amount that would be taken out if council approves through resolution would be $880,953.62 compared to a budget of almost $1.4 million. So leaving some money in the bank for unused items. So I put in the comments column specifically what those items were for. And then similarly in section 3 titled items to be transferred to reserve or reserve funds due to 2023 carryover. So the amount, the individual amounts are listed with a description and what amounts we're putting into either the reserve or reserve fund. So I think that's the long cycle without actually giving you specific numbers. So I will pause now if there's any questions or comments.
Thanks, Christine. So we're looking for questions for part 1, 2, and 3 right now. Is that
Correct, yes.
And just before I open it up for questions, there was a total
Yes,
amount given.
yes. So in the third section, so that the total at the table, as it reads in the report, is $783,588.90. That does not include the almost $2.9 million in the line above. So the total amount, if we were, so that we also need to get council to approve the creation of a new reserve. I know we've talked about it during budget deliberations, but we need something concrete from council in terms of approval. So the total would be $3,650,549.90.
Okay, so that's the total that was at the bottom of section 3 that says $783,588.90. It was missing the 2.8 million from special projects. That total should be number 15.
3.65 million. I'm moving on.
And the creation of the new reserves for the special projects. Okay, so right now we're asking council if they have any questions on numbers 1, 2, and 3. Deputy Mayor Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christine, I think that this is an excellent way to go forward. My only question is, we're talking about 2023 budget. So we're in 2024, you're going to be budgeting for it. So we're actually, and from a perspective of law and what, I mean, how does this, like, how can we do this when the year is already finished, right? So
the timing of this isn't ideal. I will acknowledge that. As I said, it did take me a while to pull all of this information together. You'll see it in the second half of the report, having to go through back 10 years of historical records to give council accurate information of, I can tell you what the numbers are in the reserve, but what those are actually allocated for took a long time. So now that we've done that legwork and that cleanup, so to speak, the timeliness of this report will be much faster going forward.
And just unclear, I'm not disputing, I mean, I know there's a ton of work and I really appreciate all the work that's going into it. But I guess legally, when we close the year, like we're in 2024, almost going into 2025, we're able to do this from the different associations and regulations and things that you have to make sure we're.
Yes, I didn't call it out when I first sat down. It is actually required that we do this, to get council approval. So technically the books aren't closed yet.
All I need to know.
And yes, sorry, it's also an audit requirement. Like I said, policy doesn't delegate me to take care of these numbers. So that's again, something that they require to as well. So until we get financial statements, the books are still open.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, I know it seems like it's really like, we've run into some challenges with the current accounting platform that we use, which has dragged out our auditing process this year. So unfortunately, we're working on a new platform, which you'll hear about during budgeting process, that hopefully next year we'll be able to get our audit done in a much quicker manner.
Sure, and I'll just follow up. I think it's much cleaner. This is so much cleaner. This is so much clearer. And I think it's something that our residents, they can see how we're spending our money, what we've done with it, and it's very clear. And that's what we're accountable to. So I really do appreciate it.
And maybe if I could just ask this for clarity, following on the deputy mayor's line of thought here, because it was in 2023, but all of these amounts were already recorded into the books. All that you're asking here is not to be able to record them or put them on the books, just to get council's approval that it happened. Is that correct?
Technically, I can't record them without their approval.
Thank you. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Christine. I like the transparency. It's this very, very easy to look at. Also for bringing everything update as well, because that's way too long. Like 70, 80, like you said. Thank you.
Councilor Kutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely appreciate the detective work that went into this, and in particular, I really do support these modernization funds, as you say, for new ERP systems. So this sounds like a great investment, and very good news. And thank you again for bringing this level of transparency and detail. Thank you.
Are there questions and comments? I think when it comes to taxpayers' funds and what we do with them, transparency is a key word. And I think this is really doing a good job of letting everybody know that we're not just throwing money in reserve for no reason. But every time money goes in there, it's earmarked for something. We have a plan. Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're not passing any resolution yet. We have more to learn.
Unfortunately, yes, that's just the first half of the report. The second half of the report, titled Reserve and Reserve Fund Balances and Breakdown, present in the report by reserve and reserve fund, assuming section 1 is approved at tonight's meeting, the breakdown of the balances. So when I started a little over a year ago, I had a sense of what the numbers were, but didn't really get into the weeds, so to speak. Now, as you can see, I've presented, for example, the elections admin reserve. So the total amount in reserve is $912,166.71, and that has been earmarked for the above or the listed items. In the past, it was just there's $912,000 in reserve. How much is set aside for elections that occur every 4 years? How much is set aside for general use, and so on and so forth. So that level of detail is presented for each of the reserve and reserve funds. I do want to call out the, thank you, Councillor Coutu, for the modernization call out. That is one highlight that I wanted to bring to Council's attention. The second item that I wanted to draw to Council's attention was just on the Public Works Reserve Fund. So historically, in the past, a lot of the provincial and federal funding that we've received in the past has gone to fund our infrastructure projects. So roads, sidewalks, the multi-use pathways, so on and so forth. Within especially the 2025, as we are getting our funding allocations, those funds are decreasing. Double-digit decreases for some of those provincial grants or federal grants. And looking at our reserve for public works. So there's no road reserve, there's no transportation reserve, there's no fleet reserve. Really, what we have in the bank is quite concerning. So taking a look at planting that seed now for our 2025 budget cycle now, but that is something that I wanted to draw to the council's attention, especially since that a little over half of that reserve has been set aside for the public works yard, which council approved in the 2024 budget. So again, there's good news in this report, but then also concerns as well. So I'm open to other any questions or comments for the second half of the report.
Questions on the second half of the report? You want to just take us through like just a low level quick summary of each one of those reserve funds, if you don't know? Sure. Just to highlight anything you think the council needs to know.
The working fund reserve, I see as kind of a contingency reserve. So I did point out in the note there that council approved for 2024 taking a little over 30 grand out for the cameras to install that became had for security concerns. These in the past year, council approved that, and as part, that's one the highlight there. In terms of elections and admin reserve, calling out the modernization allocation, so potentially taking that amount as well as software and computers into consideration for a new software system. The special projects reserve, council had already earmarked certain items for this in 2024, and I did list a few of those items there. The severance reserve fund, this was a tricky one to untangle. When the town amalgamated, there were employees on payroll, so there were liabilities established at amalgamation for some of those employees. So it's taken some time. Those liabilities were set up as part of the amalgamation. So to my knowledge, there's only one person left that this has been set aside for. And so we could essentially wind that down or repurpose it we could wind that down, close it, and then set up a different type of reserve for other payroll liabilities if we so choose. The fire department reserve, a significant amount of funds at $500,000 for a pumper replacement. I do want to point out that the 2024 budget approved $260,000 to be transferred into reserve. So at the end of 2024, there will be $760,000 set aside for that pumper replacement. The public works reserve, I've already said my piece on that. The environment reserve, both for our used for both our Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Center portion, or any costs associated with that, as well as any waste management contract. So, for example, the Blue Box RFP for $10,000, that would be a joint RFP. So anything having to do with its environment. And then the Parks Reserve Fund, so a significant amount of funds set aside for the comfort station. That will obviously come out in 2024 since the comfort station was completed this year. It had been originally slated for 2023. We're just moving the money into the appropriate year where the expenses were incurred. The Parks Reserve is different than the Civic Center Equipment Reserve. So in the past, it's a bit of a misnomer. It says Civic Center Equipment, but it has been used for anything civic center related, excluding parks, because we put parks reserved. So again, some cleanup will happen there in the future. And again, some items there, for example, scoreboards that potentially be cleaned up too as well. So I'm just laying it all out on the table. The next step will be housekeeping. Library reserve. If there's any significant costs that arise out of library budgeting, significant capital expenditures, that's what it's allocated for any library costs. The industrial parks reserve has kind of been a multi-use reserve. So we've got our industrial park, but we've also been using it to manage our SIP grants from an economic development perspective too as well. Last but not least, the puzzle that is this Grenville Drain Reserve Fund. It just sits there. It goes back to before 2004. I need some more time to figure that out, so it's there. What we can and can't do with it, time will tell. So, try to get everything answered, but this one's not.
Okay, now we're open for questions from members of the council. Okay, I just have a quick one. The severance fund that we spoke about, the $58,000. We know there's only one employee left, so when that employee retires from the corporation, in terms of what we can do with that money, we can create any kind of fund, we can reallocate it to any other reserve fund, or there are other restrictions on that?
So with respect to reserve funds, typically reserve funds are set up through bylaw, which I think in this case, this bylaw was 1996. So we would have to repeal that bylaw to retire that reserve fund. And then we could set up a reserve. So reserves don't require a bylaw. They're kind of they're easier for council to move funds in and out of. Reserve funds are pretty restrictive, at least in this day and age. Not looking at the bylaw from 1996, but we would have to repeal that bylaw to retire the reserve fund, and then we could go ahead and set up a separate reserve. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be related to human resources. We could do anything we want.
Staff would recommend and council could approve or redirect this one.
Okay. Just sort of a follow-up when it comes to the industrial park and the fact that we have our SIP money stored in that reserve. Is that something that's okay moving forward, or are we better off to establish a separate SIP reserve fund to separate them from?
That would definitely be part of the housekeeping, so to speak, in terms of, for example, you can also see that there's website/biz dev, but then we also have something in the elections admin reserve for website. So there's definitely some cleanup and housekeeping. So that yes, in the future, I do envision us having a separate economic development reserve, and just making sure we're not. It's a lot easier. It selfishly is a lot easier for me to keep track of.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of on the heels of what Christine is hinting at, is we are going to be bringing you some new policy around reserves, reserve funds going forward in the new year. So this is something that we'll have some more discussion on. Christine has been working diligently on sort of crafting what that's going to look like. So, just so you know, there will be more discussion on this and thought as we get into once we get into 2025, because as Christine has already indicated, it's an area that really desperately needs to be cleaned up. And we want to make sure that we're doing things right and saving for the right things, right? So.
Okay, any further questions or comments? So now I guess we need a motion, and I'll read the motion. If the council approves the transfers to and from the town's reserves and reserve fund as presented in sections 1.2 and 1.3 of this report. So, you comfortable? I need a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Councillor Roots. The council approves the transfers to and from the town's reserves and reserve funds as presented in sections 1.2 and 1.3 of this report. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, we're staying with Christine. We have FIN 19 2024 water, wastewater, and development charges.
Round two. So this is a very similar report to the previous report. However, we're looking at it from the water and wastewater funds. So the reserve and reserve funds are more on the normal operating budget, so to speak. Whereas water, wastewater, those are required separate funds. So they are self-funded through user charges. So again, wanting to separate out budgets into two separate reports. Operating gets its own, and then water and wastewater being broken out. Because really the transfers in the past, as you can see on the second page of the report, in the past, the budget that had been presented to council had money coming in out of reserves and then putting money back into reserves when it's easy just to do it on a net basis. So that's what I've attempted to, and it's really just a balancing exercise. Whatever your revenues are for the year and your expenses, if you're positive in revenues, you transfer that net income, if you will, into reserve. And if your expenses exceed your revenues, then it's a transfer from reserves to bring your revenues in line with your expenses. So you're always trying to achieve a zero budget. So that's the purpose for the numbers presented from a water and wastewater reserve perspective. Development charges, they are an obligatory reserve fund, so they get their own special treatment and regulatory reporting beyond our financial statements. So again, I've tried to take the approach of individual line items that council approved to be funded through development charges. And that's in section 2 of the report, presenting what was originally approved versus what was actually incurred, and putting comments in terms of whether or not things would carry over into 2024 or not. Again, if it was unused, it would stay in our development charges reserve fund to be used for future items. And to refresh your memory, we did do a development charges background study for this past year for 2024. So those new items that we can use development charges for, those are on the table going forward too as well. So once again, to reiterate what I said before, I have to get approval from council. So once these are approved, I can then issue the part of the development charges legislation is that the treasurer needs to issue an annual statement. So that will be forthcoming again to the next report at council. Once these are approved, ready to go, just need your approval again from a legal perspective to get your blessing. I'll pause now, grab some water, give you guys a chance to ask me any questions.
Just before I open it up, is there anything in either of these charts that you'd like to highlight?
Excuse me. The one thing that I would like to highlight is we are taking, although it is below budget, taking a significant amount of funds out of our wastewater reserve compared to our water reserve. So planting again the seed now for our 2025 budget, looking at adjusting. In the past, the water and wastewater increases, annual increases, have been dictated by our background study that sets out the rates for 10 years. However, a lot has changed since that study was done, I believe, in 2020. So looking at what our budgets will be for 2025, readjusting what those increases are from a water and wastewater. So from a ratepayer perspective, if the total amount of increase is, I forget what the exact percentages are, let's say it's 5% for water and 7% for sewer. If we know, and I know our water reserve is quite healthy, could we increase our sewer rates to 8 or 9%, but not increase our water rate? So total dollar amounts, the ratepayers would still be paying an increase, but we would be able to allocate funds appropriately to help fund our sewer reserve, because we are continuing to take funds out of our wastewater reserve. So not sure what the exact numbers are, I gave you some examples, but that's something to consider or will be considered for the 2025.
Just a quick question on that. The update that we currently have going with Watson's on the water and wastewater, is that going to affect any of this moving forward?
It will, I don't know when we'll be able to get that completed. In terms of our budget cycle, I don't think we'll get it done in time. Unless,
No, I'll agree with Director of Finance. The way things are going, I'm not expecting that study to be completed until sometime in the new year. And, you know, it's a mixture of things that I understand there's still some outstanding information that we were working on in regards to our inventory of infrastructure that we have to remind them. And hopefully that information will be provided to them shortly so that we can get some numbers to review and so we have a clearer picture of what our relationship will be with all of our user groups going forward.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. So I'll open it up for questions and then the council. Councilor Kerman.
Thank you for your service and thanks for the report, Christine. Arbitrage seems to be part of the public dialogue these days, quite a bit. But various levels of government, prodding municipalities to build, and get rid of those nasty development charges that are an impediment to people building. But there's this big disconnect between, the services required for all that new building and then how you're going to pay for them. And is there anything in the air that you've heard of, or any new grant programs that are to fund this infrastructure that's in such a deficit situation?
I'm not aware of any new or whispers of any new grant programs. I'm only aware of the ones that have been announced by provincial and federal bodies, so that are inclusive, enabling water sewer funds. There are some other housing enabling funds that we have taken a look at, but we're just not eligible for, whether it's based on our population or based on other metrics. I'm not aware of anything new forthcoming, unfortunately.
Further questions on the report? Okay, I'll read the motion first and then after the mover. The motion is that council approves the transfers to and from the town's reserves and reserve funds as presented in sections 1 and 2 of this report, and in brackets, actual. If you're comfortable with that, I need to move in a second. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Coutu. That council approves the transfers to and from the town's reserves and reserve funds as presented in sections 1 and 2 of this report, actually. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's scary. Thanks, Christine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your patience.
And thanks for your history work.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a detective.
Yeah.
Okay, next we'll go to planning and development. Melanie's here to talk about PL-31-2024 extension of draft approval for Ratke Estates Phase 2. Melanie.
Good evening. So this is an annual exercise that we go through with subdivisions, so just a little bit of Planning Act 101. When a subdivision is first approved, developers are given 3 years to use the draft conditions. And every year thereafter, if the conditions aren't met, they have to come to the municipality and ultimately to the county for a 1-year extension. So beyond the first 3 years, it's annual extension. Most big subdivisions go through this cycle because, as is the case with Variety, it's a big subdivision, there's many phases that takes time to get through that. So we're currently working on phase 2. We're very close to bringing subdivision agreement to council before Christmas it will be. But there are also other things. Just in this time for the annual review, the current approval lapse is January 8th, 2025, and it has to go in approval once we have a municipal resolution. Just bringing that for you tonight to get that municipal resolution to support the draft approval and such.
Thanks, Melanie. Questions on the report? I just have a quick question for you. I understand that this is legislated and that after the 3-year period, we have to grant an extension year after year. Is it worthwhile and important for the municipality to do this extension every year? Is it something we would miss if we weren't doing it every year?
If we don't grant the extension, the subdivision approval lapses and the developer has to reapply.
So it just seems to me that the province wants us to build homes faster and make it easier for developers to go through this process. But then this process is taking up our staff time and it's taking up the developers' time. And I assume it's costing money. It just seems to me that maybe looking forward, that this is something, part of this process could be expedited by not making these subdivisions have to apply year after year for these extensions. Would it speed things up and would it save staff time? I'm thinking the answer is yes.
Yeah, in fact, I dug into the Planning Act to see if this had changed in the most recent amendment.
Okay, proof it. All right, miss. If everybody's comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sanford, second by Councillor Root. The council supports the extension of draft approval for the Ratke Estates subdivision phase 2. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Melanie. Next up, we have Legislative Services Monthly Report for October 2024. Colin.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Through you to council. Before I use my monthly report for legislative services for the month of October, I'll briefly highlight a few key points within my report. You'll notice under animal control, unfortunately, at the time of the report going out on the agenda last week, we hadn't received the Protect 5 information from them, so that therefore there's no data under animal control. So I'll bring that forward at my report next month, 2 months worth then. Flipping over under bylaw enforcement, we had 7 parking infraction notices issued in the month of October. Under watering, we still have a few properties that are laid down some fresh sod and new grass seed, so we can give them an exemption. Our large leaf and yard waste pickup was October the 14th and October the 28th, and happy to report I didn't receive any negative comments about that. Under birding, there was 2 written warnings issued for birding on Sack Road. And then flipping over on my last page, under Commissioner votes, we had a total of 29 requests in the month of October. 4 requests were declined. Under the marriage certificates, we had 4 licenses issued in October, and the revenue is listed there. We received a total of $400 for those 4 licenses. And I'll just make note, our community flag requests for the month. In October, we had the breast cancer awareness flag up from October the 1st to the 14th. And German Heritage Month was up for the last 2 weeks of the month. The recommendation, the council received the monthly report for legislative services and information, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there.
Questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Sanford.
Actually, just a comment, it's mind-boggling sometimes to me, the scope of things that the staff here deal with, and I'm Commissioner about pension confirming alive and residency 5 this month, so well done to you.
Thank you.
Okay, if everybody's comfortable, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councilor Patu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tavern. The council received the Legislative Services Monthly Report for October as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have LEG 13-2024 procedural bylaw amendments. Colin, a lot of work went into this.
Yes, thank you once again, Mayor Service, through you and the council. Before I get into it, I want to do a big shout out to Kate Bennett. Kate was, I guess, phenomenal in putting this report together and doing a lot of legwork on my behalf. And actually last week sending out the agenda. So a huge thank you to her for doing this work. As addressed earlier this evening, we have a bylaw that was dated not quite as old as the one that our treasurer referred to earlier, but this one was last updated in 2009. And as council is aware from our workshop that we had earlier this year, this is a much needed review, and happy to report that we've gotten to where we are today. We've updated the draft policy and the bylaw, I should say, with accessibility formatting done from top to bottom. And we touched on all the key points that we addressed at our workshop. So just to touch base on that, and also an important key point is that our strategic plan, this was one of the agenda items that we wanted to cross off our agenda for this year. So happy to report that if this is adopted tonight and then our next council meeting and formally adopted by bylaw, we can check that off as completed for 2024. So summary of some of the amendments that are within the draft bylaw. The adjournment time, as council is aware, we had stated the previous version had it at listed at 9:30. We've agreed to change that to 10:30. It happened in my 4 years here, I think twice that we had to extend, and it was only for about 5 or 10 minutes. So I think just by making it 10:30, that gives us the time, or, we don't have to worry about necessarily extending. And I think going beyond that, you start to get too long in a meeting and you start to check out. So I think that's a fair assessment to go that last hour. Under the structure and order of business, we did a comprehensive format for councils and committees, which have been adopted. You'll see in the package, we actually brought in, we made it a lot more structured and a lot more in the formatting. Everything is all there, the order of business. It touches on the municipal act and provisions of the act. So it highlights a lot of key things that was missing in the old version. So that's an important piece as well. And then under document organization and accessibility, I just touched on, we made it a completely readable document, so we could post this on our website and have a good understanding that it's actually an accessible document. Before we couldn't do that, so that's a big plus. It also has related the code of conduct, the accessibility and the transparency policies that are within the document, and they too have been rewritten and they comply with the AODA standards. Also under the committees of council heading, you'll see that when we updated all the roles and parity, we made a little graph in there to show what the actual committees are. If they're a standing committee, if they're an ad hoc committee, if they're committee of council, special committee of council. So that gives a little bit more clarity that before wasn't there. And frankly, we actually had a lot of calls or a lot of boards and committees that were not even listed on our previous procedure bylaw. So we've gotten that up to date. We've also did a little bit of house cleaning and got rid of the committees that are no longer part of our structure. So with those amendments done, the procedure bylaw is now more comprehensive, more accessible, and better aligned with the current municipal practices. And again, as I touched on earlier, it aligns with our 2024 and 2026 strategic goals. So the recommendation in my report is that council endorses the attached amended procedural bylaw and that the bylaw be presented at the next council meeting for formal adoption of the revised procedural bylaw. I'd be happy to take any questions if council have any.
Thanks, Colin. And I think we should bring back the septage committee. That sounds like an interesting one. I'd like to sit on that. Questions from members of council?
No comment.
Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well done to you and Kate, extraordinarily thorough. And if anybody's got a question, it's very clear. I'm looking at delegations and presentations, just the 10 minutes no longer than 10 minutes. We've had a number of presentations, over just the last year that sometimes go to 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So I'm just wondering if that's an area that perhaps we should have looked at to extend it maybe 15, or what the method would be to cut those discussions shorter. So I just throw that out because that was the only thing that just sort of went, okay, there's one that I'm not sure how that gets, let's call it policed. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll answer this one. Really, it comes down to the chair enforcing the time limits. Obviously, sometimes you do get a presentation that is providing some really worthwhile information, and it's at the chair's discretion whether or not to allow that extra time for that explanation or that presentation to finish up. But obviously, you know, you set the timelines. We tell delegations ahead of time what their limit is, and we hope that, and most movements of that have been very good and adhered to the timeline given to them. But it comes down to the chair reminding them of their time limit if they are exceeding it unnecessarily.
just for clarity, when it comes to those presentations, this 10 minutes is just the presentation portion of it. It doesn't include the question and answer that comes after. So I think if we look at most people coming here, most delegations, they try and stay within the 10, and it's usually the question and answer period that seems to extend these presentations. But as you say, it's my responsibility, and it's hard sometimes because everybody coming here has something important to say, and you know, they want their voice to be heard. So it's hard for me to blow a horn or ring a bell and say, that's it, you're done. But I hear it falls upon me to make sure that the council meeting runs in an orderly fashion and that time limits are adhered to. Definitely there's that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up, I certainly wasn't commenting on your ability to manage meetings, just for clarity. But I just sort of thought, you know, maybe 15, you know, not more than 15 might be, and I would be happy to have a small little stick given to me so that I can gently nudge the mayor, to just, take a look at that. But no, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and certainly we want, our residents to be felt that they are heard and whatnot. But I know there have been a number of times, where maybe 15 minutes I get more appropriate. So anyways, food for thoughts. Thank you.
Just for a point of reference, at the county meetings, their delegation time limit is 15, not including question and answer. And for the most part, that's adhered to, for the most part. Sometimes it's difficult. Any other questions or comments on the report? Councilor Coutu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, I really appreciate the workshopping of these policies. I like the opportunity we had to informally talk about this and then have it so well represented in front of us here. And again, I'm really glad we have Kate to help because this was a lot of detail and reading through it. It's great to have it all in one spot now. So thank you.
Further questions or comments? So again, thanks Colin and Kate for all the work. I know that it's a tedious task that you have to go through all of these old bylaws and come up with a better way to modernize them. But I think the key word is, would you like to throw something in there?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Are you asking for us to amend the delegation time limit from 10 to 15? So before you pass a motion, I just want to make sure that that's the consensus, or someone will need to make that as part of the motion, I'm assuming.
How does everybody feel about bumping that up an extra 5 minutes?
I like this. Some wiggle room. Yeah, I think that.
So do we need a motion to make that amendment? And,
I can make the changes if you adopt it in principle now. I'll bring the changes forward for the bylaw.
so we don't need a motion to amend?
No.
Okay, so we're just going by nod of head then? Everybody's good with bumping that up to 15 minutes? So when I read this, it should be,
Amendment.
it already says the council endorses the attached amended procedural order. I thought ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just make sure it's amended when it comes back.
Okay, so yeah, thanks again. This is all part of our modernization, and we heard a lot about that word this evening with our reserves and reserve funds and now our procedural bylaws. So it's great to see us moving forward and streamlining our operation. Okay, so you see the motion. I need a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Roots, second by Councillor Donovan. The council endorses the attached amended procedural bylaw and that the bylaw be presented at the next council meeting for formal adoption of the revised procedural bylaw. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. There's nothing for general matters. We have no closed meeting. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Coutu. Everybody wants to go home? Second by Councillor Cameron. That the meeting be adjourned at the call of the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.